Okay, so we've been here before. Hi, Ozzy. This is the Mudroom. Video up on this if you haven't seen it. I'll throw a link down below. It turned out really, really nice, and it's been super functional. This is the laundry room. Also video up on that. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I'll throw a link to that one below as well. This is a closet that I feel like they just kind of added as an afterthought, and we really use it as such. It's just random junk storage, like everything else back here in either of these spaces. Car seats, old baby tub, Carhartt long johns. I don't know, there's all kinds of crap in here. It's really just wasted space, and it'd be good for storage, but we've already introduced storage with the cabinets that are huge and the upper storage up there. So I want to make this space more functional. So if we go forward, this is our kitchen. It's just small. Like, there's not a lot of countertop space really at all. So fun fact, if you're looking for a house and you're walking through and they've got really nice appliances, which ours did and does, take a second look at the countertops. It's a hustle. They're trying to take your attention away from the minimal countertop space. So here's our pantry, also fairly small and pretty disorganized. So in order to get the most bang for my buck out of this space, which is that closet, I want to frame in that wall, open up this one, do a lower cabinet and some floating shelves, and make it kind of like a butler's pantry. And then we can leave the pantry door closed so my 1-year-old daughter can't get in there and fish stuff out all the time. And we can put the trash can inside the lower cabinet as like a pull out. That way my dog doesn't get in and eat all our stuff when we're gone. All our trash while we're gone. So let's see if we can turn this space into this. Wait a second. That's not right. Let's try that again. Wait a second. What are you doing in there? Well, since it appears my snap's broken, you guys are just gonna have to wait till the end to check this one out. Let's get started. So, first things first, we need to clean out this space. And of course, Ozzy's here to keep me company and really be in the way. Silly dog. Here's a quick fun fact. This wine rack I'm taking down is like the second or third thing I ever made. So that's kind of cool. Nothing personal. I just don't want you guys to get messy either. Now, whacking this with a hammer was super fun, but if I could go and do it again, I would probably use a drywall saw and try to take out bigger chunks just to keep the dust and the particles to a minimum. But I mean, come on, how often do you get to kick a hole through your own wall? Man, all these HGTV shows always like get super psyched for demo day, and it was really fun destroying them. What they don't tell you is there's a lot of cleanup involved here. So much drywall dust, even with the drop cloths. This is gonna take me a while. I think this is a load-bearing wall, like the wall that we're looking to get rid of is supporting the second floor. So if that's right, then this above the door frame is a header, and all a header does is it sits on 2 jack studs on either side of the framing or the door frame. It supports this opening, and if this is in fact a load-bearing wall, then we'll need to either tie into this existing header or replace the full run across. So even though we're getting rid of, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 studs here, we can still support this section of the second floor. Now, my buddy Colin knows significantly more about framing and studs and supporting walls and all that jazz. So we're gonna wait to go forward until I can get some insight from him. All right, so Colin came over. We took a look at the situation. We are gonna put in a header, which means that we'll take out those 2 middle studs and add a 2x8 stretcher across the top, and that'll support the load of the loft upstairs. Normally speaking, I think we're supposed to have a temporary wall set up, but Colin's been remodeling and flipping houses for a good handful of years, and he says that with it just being the loft and the structure of the house, it shouldn't be an issue in our case. We're gonna have that header up there in a matter of minutes anyway, so I think we're good to move forward.
Once we had our studs in, we could start adding the drywall. Getting a drywall screw gun is not essential, but it is super helpful. It has a depth stop and it dimples in the drywall screw. That way you can mud over it. Makes it a lot faster. Also, a lot more went into adding this light, but Colin's not a master electrician. I'm certainly not a master electrician, so, you know, check your local building codes, and if you're not comfortable, electricity is not where you want to start with DIY.
Okay, so we've made good progress on the closet to pantry renovation. Everything's framed, drywall's up, the mud is on. We've done 2 coats. We'll follow up with a second coat tomorrow after we do some sanding. In the meantime, we're going to get working on this cabinet, which requires breaking down plywood. Now, you've seen me breaking down plywood before. It's not really that interesting, so let's montage. All right, guys, we're working on our cabinet construction. Cabinet construction is not very complicated. It's actually really straightforward, just glue and pocket hole screws and plywood. What really is important is making sure everything is square. So I use these square clamps here. You've seen these before, and that means I'm square on this plane, but I also wanna make sure I'm square on this plane. So I've got this set up here, can slide right in and see that it's perfectly met. That means I'm gonna be square on my X and Y as well as Z axis, and that is gonna make us really, really happy when it comes to installing drawer slides and things of that nature.
Once our cabinet was built, we could get the face frame attached and get a little sanding in and a little bit of painting and set that one aside and move on to the next part of the project.
So, if you've been following me on Instagram, then you know about a year ago I remodeled my grandmother's kitchen. Exhibit A. We used butcherblock countertops and it came together really, really nicely. I actually really liked them, and we bought them from Menards, so I didn't have to make them, which was even better. So there were some left over, and she let me have them, so we're gonna use those same countertops for our Butler's pantry. Let's dig that out.
Off camera, I cut that piece down and glued it up so it would fit my space. While that was curing up, I did go ahead and get the first coat of paint on. Now, according to my buddy Sean over at Four Eyes Furniture, watching someone paint is right up there with watching paint dry in terms of boredom. So I'll spare you that and we can get back to the countertop. Once things were glued up, we could cut it to length and see about getting everything moved inside and into the space. Geez, once that goon got out of my way, I was very pleased to find out that the cabinet fit on the first try, and believe it or not, it was even level. Sometimes you just get lucky. So I think the trick to a space like this one is making people believe that it was always there, right? This was just original to the home. And what goes a long way in giving that built-in look is adding some paintable caulk, using painter's tape, and just cleaning it up with your finger. Really gives that built-in seamless transition. Here we're drilling some oversized holes and then using panhead screws with a washer to allow for wood movement to attach the butcher block countertop. While I'm working on this countertop, I thought I'd go ahead and mention if you're enjoying what you're seeing, if you're liking this content, go ahead and hit that subscribe and like button and ring that notification bell. Another part to make this look really high-end is just adding a splash guard, which is pretty easy to do. Just cut the piece to fit, throw a little bit of liquid nails or construction adhesive, press it into place, and then same routine as the cabinet, go around with some paintable caulk and clean up those seams. Like I mentioned in the intro, the right side of this cabinet is going to have a pull-out trash. I just ordered this kit off of Amazon. I think it was $115 or so, and it came with the trash cans, the attachments, the slides, the whole thing. It was fairly straightforward to put in, but came with decent instructions, so your average weekend warrior can do this no problem.
So this is fairly simple. Basically, you just need two thick backer pieces that are thick enough to support the weight. The 1/4-inch back panel is definitely not. So I added two scrap pieces of plywood and then mounted these little L brackets in, and then the long things hook into the L bracket, and then you attach them up here. Now I had to add some spacers up here because the width of this particular model does not match the width of my opening, but I'm going to make the cabinet base big enough to cover the whole opening, so that won't really matter. There'll just be a little bit of wasted space over here, which is not the end of the world, but it works and it's going to be pretty nice. Whew. Okay guys, so this has been a longer up, but we are finally to the point of making the face frames for the cabinets. Now I've gone back and forth about how I wanted to do this probably a dozen times, and you'll have to excuse the sweat. It is hot as can be here. Basically, when it comes to making cabinet faces, there's a ton of different ways. The two ways that I normally do it are either using pocket hole screws, which is pretty quick and easy, or using a couple of router bits that are called cope and stick bits. And it gives a really nice clean trim. I think this is what a lot of the professionals typically use. The average person is not really gonna notice or see the difference between these two. This takes setup time, this takes glue time, this takes clamp time. These are easy to drop. I really don't want to do that because this has been a long project as it is. So we're going to keep it nice and simple. We're going to use pocket hole screws, which is kind of good news for you guys because a lot of you don't have these. I'd venture to say most of you don't have these. Pocket hole screws and a pocket hole jig are very, very affordable to get into. This is the K4. I think it's like $100. You don't need this one. You can get the K Mini. I'll throw a link to it down below. It's like $16. You can do the exact same thing, just the K Mini, a clamp, and pocket hole screws, and you're good to go. So let's make some face frames.
So if you're pretty observant, and I assume if you've made it this far that you are, you'll notice that I've used 3 different drill driver sets in this video. I started with Ryobi, and that's what I've had for years, and I wanted to upgrade, and I tried Flex. It's a great set. They just don't have the tools I need on that platform yet, so I ended up going with Musica, and so far, no complaints. So let me go ahead and apologize. I'm not sure what's happening in this clip. I just wanted to show you the rabbet I put on the frame, and I think the heat was getting to me, and yeah, not a good video, so my apologies. Basically just showing you that it's easier to round over the drop-in panel than it is to square up the corners of the frame. Once I had the cabinets pulled together, I wanted to do a test fit, but when I got back inside, I ran into some distractions. Emmie had found the cabinet and decided that this was going to be her play place. So I figured it was best to just go back out in the garage and work on something else. So we're gonna get the drawers built in the meantime. Again here, I wanted to keep drawer construction as simple as possible, so we are just using glue and 18 gauge 2-inch brad nails. This went together really well. I've made these before, strength has never been an issue, so I'm not too worried. And once the cabinet space was free, I could go ahead and get the drawer sides installed. Drawer sides are not usually very complicated if we've done our due diligence throughout the project and everything is square, and ours is, thank goodness. Then they go in fairly smoothly. Basically, there are 3 components: the base, the female part, and the male part. Slide the male part out, attach the female part and the base to the inside, attach the male part to the drawer slide, and then fit the male part back in the female part. A little bit of rinse and repeat, and all 3 of our drawer sides were in. Then we could turn our attention back to the cabinet faces, or cabinet doors, and I wanted to add an edge profile and then go ahead and get those primed. While I was priming those, I figured I'd also go ahead and paint the brackets that were going to hold the upper shelves.
So we're at the point where we want to hang our shelves. We're going to do 2 floating shelves made out of the same butcher block material. I did end up having to go buy more, which is kind of a bummer, but I got that cut down off camera and it's got finish on it curing up. In the meantime, we're going to hang our brackets. These are not stainless steel, galvanized, I think. Pretty sturdy stuff. The original black ones were really flexible, and that is a beefy piece of wood, and the shelves are also going to be really beefy, so I went ahead and got the galvanized and just painted them black so they look nicer, and the black will tie in well with our handles. So I've got the laser level set up at where I want the top of the bottom shelf brackets to be, and the vertical laser is in line with the stud, and that'll tell me where I can drive in my screws. Goodness, this project's taking too long.
Just a quick note here, laser levels are about 60, 75 bucks depending on which one you get, but it really was worth its weight in gold here. It kept me on the stud I needed to be, as well as kept both my brackets totally in line with one another. It had been a huge pain of measuring, then going back, then measuring and going back, trying to mount these without a laser level. Like I said, we did end up having to buy a little bit more butcher block, which was a bummer, but I really think this ended up looking super cool. It was either shorter shelves made out of butcher block or full shelves made out of plywood, or we bought more butcher block, and I think we made the right call.
All right, guys, so we just left the hardware store. I measured twice, cut once, still cut it wrong. And I want to be transparent when I'm building and show you guys that, 1, I still make mistakes, and 2, if you're in this kind of area of maker, woodworker, whatever, you're gonna make mistakes too. I don't think there's a level of experience that you don't make mistakes, because none of us are perfect. The difference is, and what's important, is putting in the time and being relentless and tenacious, and the sweat and the courage, hashtag Mr. Build It, to see the project through and to get over that hurdle. When you get that release of endorphins, when you hit that success point, when you beat whatever obstacle that's in front of you, it's hard to compare to that. And that is a really, really good feeling, and it fuels you to keep going forward. So whatever you're working on, whatever you're stuck with, be tenacious, be bigger than the obstacle, and you'll win.
Typically, I hate having to do something twice during a project, but this is the first cabinet face or cabinet door I made, and it's not bad. And this is the second one I made. And I decided to do the chamfer through and around the edge, and it looks so much more clean and defined. Like, there's DIY, like almost professional. Like, it looks way, way better. So we live and we learn. Now, I'm not one to say you have to have something to do a project, but having the right jigs when it comes to installing cabinetry and cabinet hardware, huge game changers. I'll be sure to throw a link to this hinge jig as well as the hardware jig in the description below. Once all the hardware was installed, all that was left to do was put the doors on. Getting the cabinet doors attached wasn't too complicated, just got them in place, clamped them down, and drove in a few screws. Now we can take a look at what this space looked like before and what it looks like now. Do it for this one. Thanks so much. If you made it to the end, hats off to you. This is by far the biggest project I've tackled in terms of space, also in terms of all the different elements. I mean, we've got framing, we've got drywall, we've got cabinetry, we've got drawer slides. We did a lot here, and it really came together well. I think it complements the space wonderfully. If you really enjoyed what you saw, I'd appreciate if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with a friend. It really helps out the channel and shows people that my content is worth watching. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you in the next one.